Welcome those accompanying us that are connecting to accompany us virtually. My name is Gloria Silva. I'm part of the Secretary of Women in Chile. I'll be waiting for you, accompany you in Argos, International Observatory of Human Rights. I'd like to greet the creation of this observatory. And so we have a plurality of voices that show the intentions in the creation of this observatory for migration and human rights, integrating, respecting all migrants to discuss our topics, not as mere subject of studies. Among the migrant voices, we have accompanying us in this event a number of wonderful poet women. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank them for accompanying us: Violeta Orozco, Carolina Dávila, Vanessa González Peña, Chana Mamani, y Fatma Malem Mohamed. And also, we have Miko Salva, who is the spokesperson of this event, who's going to talk about the reasons that motivated the creation of Argos, an observatory to understand the processes of human mobility. So to understand these topics, we're going to start with the video on Argos prepared by our team.
Throughout history, mankind has been in constant transit through different latitudes of the planet in search of better environments and living conditions. Many people move from one nation to another in search of new opportunities. However, tens of thousands flee armed conflict, terrorism, persecution, and massive human rights violations. At Argos, the International Observatory on Migration and Human Rights, we set out to investigate the social, economic, political, and cultural phenomena surrounding the processes of human mobility in different regions of the planet, with the aim of promoting and defending the human rights of people in situations of mobility. The evocation of the myth of Argos inspires us to observe, with a plurality of perspectives, the migratory phenomena in order to act against situations of violations of human rights to guarantee free human mobility under conditions of equality and non-discrimination. Argos focuses on migration processes, addressing their structural causes, the populations in conditions of vulnerability, the various actors involved, and possible strategies for warning, reporting, monitoring, and resolving cases.
Hola. Bueno, parece que tenemos un pequeño problemita de audio. Les voy a volver a comentar.
We are having some problems with the audio. We have Violeta Orozco, Davila, Vanessa González Peña, Chana Yamani, Fatma Mohamed, Salam Hama. Thank you again for being with us today, that you joined your voices to this observatory. And welcome Nicole, the spokesperson of this observatory. He's going to talk about the objectives and the reasons for this Argos. She is a lawyer, expert in international law, and permanent representative of the International Organization of Jurists at the United Nations in Geneva for the more than 10 years. Over the last 20 years, she has developed extensive experience in the field of human rights, both at the institutional level in international organizations and in the field, participating in research missions in various countries of the world. Welcome, Nicole. Welcome. Good afternoon. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. What's the origin of this initiative? Well, this is the initiative of a number of researchers from various parts of the world. All along the years, each one of us, we've been studying positions regarding migration in various spaces with academic research, activism, and human rights. The idea is to put our knowledge together so we can have an interdisciplinary approach of the migratory phenomenon. To understand these phenomena, its structural causes, the technical juridical aspect is not the only aspect. We need to discuss the political, sociological, anthropological, and spatial. And that's precisely what we want to do. Why did you choose this name, Argos? Well, we inspired by the Greek myth of Argos, that of multiple eyes uh, God, rather than the vigilant character. We would like to think about the plurality of visions and be attentive to the current situation. What does Argos propose? What are the main objectives? Well, Argos is an initiative aimed at the continuous monitoring, research, and analysis of migration dynamics in Latin America, Europe, and Africa, with the aim of systematizing and disseminating relevant information in the field of to all relevant actors. It is also proposed to carry out formal actions and various international bodies to defend the human rights of persons in a situation of mobility, both nationally, regionally, and internationally. It, we want to create a space where the migrants can tell the stories and share their experiences. This is an integrated space, of course, with various migrants that are accompanying in this launching of this organization. Thank you so much for your reflections and for the effort of this initiative to visualize the different dimensions in a very complex and differentiated phenomenon, but it's so necessary. Now we will present a short video by which we will know some of the faces behind the Argos Observatory.
María Hernández, investigadora, argentina, abogada, inmigrante en Venezuela. Vengo trabajando hace más de 25 años en la defensa de los derechos humanos contra todas las formas de explotación causadas por el colonialismo y el imperialismo. Hoy hemos creado con un grupo de amigos de distintas partes del mundo Argos, como un observatorio internacional de migraciones y derechos humanos. Queremos defender el derecho a la movilidad humana, a un mundo sin frontera, donde la frontera se desdibuje y sea solo un espacio de paso y no de permanencia. Bienvenidos a Argos.
My name is Adrienne Pine. I'm a medical anthropologist and professor of anthropology here in Washington, D.C. The bulk of my research has been in Honduras, where I've looked at migration-related issues for over 20 years. I've also served about 100 times as an expert witness in asylum cases here in the United States. And most recently have co-edited a volume called Asylum for Sale, Profit and Protests in the Migration Industry. I'm so excited to be a part of this effort.
Hola, mi nombre es Florencia Masadi, me desempeño hace más de 13 años en materia de incidencia de derechos de las personas en situación de migración desde una perspectiva decolonial, haciendo énfasis en la necesidad de potenciar las transformaciones culturales. Me siento, la verdad, que muy contenta y muy honrada de ser parte del desafío de conformar este observatorio.
Hola, buenos días. Soy Hamzat Boukari Yabara. Soy un historiador de Benín y de Martinica y trabajaré a partir de casos africanos con el observatorio sobre el tema de la colonialidad y también de la libertad de movimiento. El objetivo de mi trabajo es identificar los mecanismos heredados de la colonización que se incluyen en las políticas antimigratorias. También se tratará de determinar las rutas geográficas y los obstáculos legales que están en el centro de la colonialidad de la migración. Creo que el observatorio podrá dar una nueva perspectiva a los temas migratorios en el contexto de las relaciones norte-sur y también en el contexto de la descolonización. Muchas gracias, un abrazo, viva el Observatorio Argos.
No se escucha.
Tenemos un pequeño detalle con el sonido, no sé si el equipo técnico, ahora sí, ¿no?
Sí.
Lo arreglamos, gracias.
Okay, we fixed the sound.
Atrás de estos eventos,
Thank you to all our friends who are working with those of us. There are many people helping us. In the video, we saw some of the people who form part of Argos. It is a diverse space. There are many people, many eyes, there are many stories behind those gazes. So if I resume the conversation with Nicole, I understand that she published some of the reports. Nicole, would you please share part of that information? Well, we already have a web page, which is www.argos.org, and you can also find us on our social media in Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. There you will find part of the different texts that we have developed throughout the last months regarding the human mobility in South America, Central America, and in Europe. You will also find general information about global migration. We are preparing a report regarding the impact of COVID-19, the fundamental rights of mobilizing people. Another regarding the Venezuelan migration, which is calling people's attention from an international standpoint. Another topic is the devolution, which will be narrated by the Special Rapporteur of the United Nations. We are also working on a campaign for the universal ratification of the International Convention on the Protection of Human Rights of all migrant workers and their families. As you know, it has not been ratified by any country of the European nations or by the US or by Australia. That means that it has not been ratified by any country. So far, our work has been focused and has been summarized in the webpage. There is an initiative that is quite recent, but that will be nourished progressively. It will include statistics, photographs, testimonies, and cultural activities such as poetry recitals, literary competencies, etc. It is impossible not to note, and it is quite nice to notice about this. This is a group of women, and I said at the beginning, in Chile, there are people who are now living there from our country. And I would like to ask you, in order to end this part of your presentation, we would like you to talk about the role of the women in the human mobilization process. It's been calculated that more or less half of the migrating population is formed by women. In the human mobility process, women play a crucial role in the reconstruction of their communities. Nevertheless, as usual, women suffer several types of discrimination and violence. And we can also add a strong component that has to do with racial discrimination. Women that decide to migrate confront multiple risks and challenges different from those that are confronted by men. We may not forget that violence, the lack of opportunities, the economical inequality in their countries of origins are a trigger for them to emigrate. The risk of suffering discrimination and sexual violence accompanies women throughout their migration, and this does not decrease once they reach the destination country. In the case of Europe, for example, we know that many women end up being violence of human trafficking once they reach the European countries. However, women are not just victims. We are convinced that women are not the financial support, but also the spiritual support of society. Women, their solidarity, convert them into the protagonists of the fight against human rights in general and for the human rights of migrants, as we will see today in this poetry recital. Yes, we become a fundamental axis, and we have different social cultural categories. It is also important to talk about our resistance and the way we express that resistance. We must exercise this mobility, and there are different types of mobility, the mobility of language. And we would like to tell the poets who are here today that we are quite pleased to have here with you Violeta, Chana, Vanessa, Carolina, Fatma, Galia, Mohamed Salem. Welcome. And before listening to you, we are going to watch a video that was beautifully made regarding migration. The documentary is called The Blues of the Refugees, directed by Stefan Bukas and Christian Rox. It is a short video that reflects the life of the female refugees, as we can see in the webpage as well.
Say, this city has 10 million souls. Some are living in mansions, some are living in halls. Yet there is no place for us, my dear. Yet there is no place for us. Once we had a country, and we thought it fair. Look in the atlas, and you will find it there. We cannot go there now, my dear. We cannot go there now. In the village churchyard, there grows an old yew. Every spring, it blossoms anew. Old passports can't do that, my dear. Old passports can't do that. The council banged the table and said, if you've got no passport, you are officially dead. But we are still alive, my dear, but we are still alive. Went to a committee, they offered me a chair, asked me politely to return next year. But where shall we go today, my dear? But where shall we go today? Came to a public meeting, the speaker got up and said, if we let them in, they will steal our daily bread. He was talking of you and me, my dear. He was talking of you and me. Thought I heard the thunder rumbling in the sky. It was Hitler over Europe saying, "They must die." Oh, we were in his mind, my dear. Oh, we were in his mind. Saw a poodle in a jacket fastened with a pin. Saw a door opened and a cat let in. But they weren't German Jews, my dear. But they weren't German Jews. Went down the harbor and stood upon the quay. Saw the fish swimming as if they were free. Only 10 feet away, my dear. Only 10 feet away. Walked through a wood, saw the birds in the trees. They had no partitions and sang at their ease. They weren't the human race, my dear. They weren't the human race. Dreamed I saw a building with 1,000 floors, 1,000 windows, and 1,000 doors. Not one of them was ours, my dear. Not one of them was ours. Stood on a great plain in the falling snow. 10,000 soldiers marched to and fro, looking for you and me, my dear, looking for you and me.
Bueno, vimos el cortometraje El blues de los refugiados. Es un bello poema. Muy
Well, we
bonito.
just watched the Blues of the Refugees video. It's quite touching. We would like to thank the director, as well as the migrant cinema movement that allowed us to show these images. In this case, we were able to see how they entered the European Union. So next, we will begin the poetry recital. They are all poets, migrants, women. Thank you all for being here. We will begin with Violeta Orozco. Welcome, Violeta. Violeta is a bilingual poet, translator, and Mexican researcher living in the United States. She's the author of poetry collections as The El Cuarto de la Luna, Literal 2020, As Seen by Night, La Edad Oscura, and The Broken Women Diaries. She is a contributor to New York Poetry Review, where she translates Mexican American and Latina poets. At present moment, she promotes the Chicano literature. Violeta, welcome. We would like to listen to you.
Mucho la invitación a Jordana.
Pleasure. Thank you for the invitation of the Observatory Argos. I'm going to be brief because the poems are long. However, regarding this topic, one of the most strange things that you go through as migrant in the US, and I say strange because you have a different idea before you come here. I'm a postgraduate student. I had a different idea regarding the vision they have of us as specialized workers, a erroneous perspective, because there is the racialization of the migrant, which is interesting. In the case of the Mexican or Latinos in general, this racialization reveals that they give us a position in the racialized position in the country. I am very white and have a position in the social pyramid. They do not expect you to study a doctorate studies because of your nationality. It means that there is an economic vulnerability, which is the vulnerability of exploitation. So you don't realize this unless you live it, because you are halted to a limit, and you are characterized, and regardless of the professional activities or the social origin of the migrant. It's just something I wanted to point out. For instance, if we want to see this from a structural perspective, you can wonder, how come a postgraduate student could end up in the Supreme Court, in a detention center, since their papers are fully regular? So there you can see the structural aspect of this problem. It's not an individual problem, it's a structural problem. So my poems question this situation. The place they assign us to. I'm going to start with a poem called Medea. Medea.
Medea in the USA. Nobody will want to marry me because of my dark hair. And they said I was not Greek. An accusatory glance, spelling in hatred the strange letters of my name. You witch, you bitch, get out of here, go back to your country, you fucking terrorist, you savage cannibal. Take back your barbarous customs, you black widow, you slit-eyed slut. You deserve to be abandoned. On your tiny little island, no one knows. I am so glad Jason left you. That was the official answer of the law. That did not even look me in the eyes when I pleaded for justice, abortion, or divorce. They ignored me, called me outsider without even knowing my name, my country, the sound in my language that the word should make. They did not understand why I had to kill my kids. So many things would have changed if he, but they don't care. They only listen to him. I've tried. I have to talk over and over again, but they say I'm crazy over and over again, and they run away from me as if I were a monster with serpents in my hair. They hate me without even knowing me, without listening to what I've gone through. But it's worthless now, even if they grow ears or eyes to see me. It's over, all over. I wish I could turn back time, back to the time I saw him with his foreign, dazzling eyes, thinking for him I'd leave my country, my father, my kingdom. So what if I became poor, unknown? His love would compensate any hardship. Or so I thought. I was young then, did not foresee the end of love. I am old now. I realize I never had that love. I killed my brother for a mirage, and I lost him. I lost Jason. I wonder if I had stayed, would I have found a man who loved my dark hair, my slanted eyes, who did not require me to kill for him to prove I loved him more than I loved anyone else? Y el siguiente poema está dedicado a Gloria Ansaldúa.
Next poem dedicated to Gloria Ansaldúa. La cuerda tightrope.
Walking the tightrope across 2 countries, I balance my body in the deadly air. My song is torn between the 4 directions. The deadly oceans froth below me. I know I cannot stay for long up here. The rope will tear, my limbs will give way eventually. I've been trying to keep a precarious balance, willing to believe my balancing act will restore the order of the world. Perhaps if I manage to stay, they will keep me on this side. I am terrified to fall into the desert. Every side is the wrong side. They think I want the greener grass when I don't even believe in the mirage of the land shifting below me, the tectonic plates ripping the continents apart. I'd rather stay here, neither here nor there, here in the border between worlds where no one can reach me, throw me out into the open. I'd rather keep my act together, salute the crowd from a distance, smile into the sun, put one step forward without looking down at them. At those who think I'm some sort of bird gliding among the buildings and the treetops, unafraid of the alien sky. They are wrong, though. It is the earth that I fear, the grip of gravity, the shock of the pull of the mainland or the wave, jerking me away from the nest I built up there, somewhere among the clouds, slowly gathering my sticks and leaves, weaving a tapestry, a magic carpet that would outfly their plains, bridging mountains and building skyscrapers and highways among the highways of the tall trees and the thick vines that branch out to reach me as I have branched out towards you, stretching across rivers and islands, unraveling till I reach the silken route, the invisible path I have paved among the skies. Y el último se llama Caguama Migrante.
And the last is called Caguama Migrant. The caguama is a word, and it's a turtle. Its meaning, it's a turtle. Because I am no longer me, and my house is no longer my house. But I was never me. They wouldn't let me be. I was, like the tortoise, a floating island. carrying its miniature continent on its back. I was the bridge and the stepped back, the turtle torn from its shell. I was the bridge and the sick city above the Leaden Ocean in the Boricua neighborhood of Bushwick. We ourselves were the most solid thing we had on the land. I mean, on the water, because we lived on the water all the time. We made fun of all those who believed in the dubious solidity of the continent. Solidity of the continent, terra firma, dissected cities, as in a museum where hurricanes do not pass. The house remains standing, its intact intestines crouched under the shell. I came from a city stripped of its lake. All my buildings founded on the bed of a river. Alas, dear Tenochtitlan, majestic Texcoco, you understood better the solidity of water, the sublime architecture of the irrigation, ditches, and canals. You knew that without water, the amphibians would withdraw as the coast withdraws from the beach. The council of wise men would dissolve. The salamanders would return to the caverns. The frogs would hibernate for 1,000 years. The turtles would cross liquid and terrestrial boundaries, would cross solid membranes into the dimensions, into other dimensions, would adapt their bodies to brackish water, would cross the ocean from island to island like the canoe of the Kon-Tiki. Some would stop in the Antilles, others would search for archipelagos similar to their infancy, fragmented among 8 worlds, 3 roots, 4 heritages, 2 languages. From the Philippines to Polynesia, there on the other side of the sun, where your night is my day, where you founded your house of water, outside of your homeland, there where you were more than with you, where I was at least me, and my home at last was my home. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you very much, Violeta. This resounds me, that verse, when you said that you have not learned what has happened, it impacts me because you cannot imagine migration in the pre-migration process. So sometimes we have to cross the border and suddenly we find unexpected borders that are and walls that are difficult to destroy. Now we are going to listen to poet Shana Mamani. Shana is a poet, a teacher, and a cultural activist of Aymara origin who migrated with her family to Buenos Aires, Argentina when she was a child. She currently develops a line of activism and anti-racist social work nucleated in the collective Identidad Marrón. She runs the blog Lenguatazo Marrón and published the book Yarawi Aymara. We are going to listen to you, Chana. Welcome here. Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you, all of you, all the women who are here in this extremely important launching of Argos. I share the words of Violeta when she says that we have to show the migrant identity, because this is what this is all about. This affects the nation, the state, and the whole world, mainly in a time or in a moment where evidently there is a infinite attack towards certain nationalities, and migration in one way or another today is demonstrating undoubtedly that it's necessary to interweave different spaces and different latitudes, and most of all, regarding from our Identidad Marrón, which is a space where we show and we illustrate and we also denounce before the states and before other agencies the structural racism that exists in Argentina and also within the Latin American context, because we all share that colonial, patriarchal, and capitalist structure. Notwithstanding this, every territory has a racism that has a particular impact. And in this sense, I believe that in one way or another, we are breaking that aspects that have been established regarding the national identity and religious identity. And now that we are crossing this pandemic, and now that we have an urgent health condition, we will see the prevailing of this rejection, and we will destroy these walls. The walls, for example, between Mexico, the United States, with Europe. But mainly the most worrisome for us are those walls that are between us, those that link us with other friends, with comrades, with relatives and families with whom we have lived and with whom we've made communities. I love that word. And I talk about that place because definitely we migrate from different territories and then we build one way of coexisting. And in that sense, I wouldn't like to extend too much, but I must also mention writing. Writing is a political tool. It's a political justice that is necessary to be developed. And this has to do with the Aymara roots, and I'm quite proud of it. In a urban city like Buenos Aires, it's quite notorious to be Aymara. So in this sense, there is a whole multiplicity of identities here in Buenos Aires. We have the indigenous groups, mainly in countries with lots of indigenous groups. That type of stereotypes is always linked to all aspects that have to do with dangerous things, suspicious things, and evidently women evidently are like the reproducers of all the evil things of the world, as people say. And mainly we go to a place, to a new territory, to invade that place. That is what people think. And this affects women. And this is quite worrisome for children who are born in that place, but who are considered as foreigners. I believe that that is an aspect that also competes us. So in that sense, poetry is something that helps me. I connect the oral memory and writing, at least from the Aymara point of view, must be recovered. And we must talk these languages, a Spanish language, Aymara language, and these languages are formed in the places where you live. So writing is important. The first poem is going to be read, and in the second poem, I will ask you to at least try to close your eyes for a few minutes. I will turn off the camera, and I would like you to listen to me. So, Irpa City. Lying on the same chair, under some not very passable breeze, I found you in that adorable space. I love you. I love you as a lover. She who goes out of the window escapes behind that blind, and as I glint, makes a drawing, naked to laughter. I love you in that curious way that descends from some little white ship, and in that explosion, your tone discovers the wings that dead leaves possess. In that fall, dejected, you clench your teeth of that rifle that bleeds, an endless story. And a silence falls from the Milky Way. It floods my eyes. I feel the sleeplessness, that broken embrace, like a downpour, and rocks fall. Well, in that abysmal human delirium, Irpa City, I love you, companion of my throat, with your texture, with your mouth, with your doubts, and my seconds that breathe, I smell of some. Iwayu, I love you. I want to invent you a little trova, and if the night disappears, I promise you to cross the moon, always waning, and that a plane lands at the door of your house. When the memory wants to tie you down, let's set sail with our fingers and the footprint will explode into dust. If the snakes chase us, disguised as scales, let's sew butterflies in that crucial flicker. Let's burn the sky. Huayna, I love you in that verse of the flight that allows us to escape one afternoon, to live the four seasons, the reiterated tide of escape, for I promise there is no hell. Irpa City, I love you, livable, habitable, and the seagulls return to their sea. She is the lover. Well, and the second poem, as I said before, I will ask you to close your eyes. I will turn off my camera, and it is called The Sumacoña. And it says, well, I was wet. We had been interlinked in the borders of the bed. We saw that fragments filled with trust that I liked so much. And as you were silent, I asked you to scratch and I erupted the tongue. Yes, Muyuspa, Muyuspa, Bolivian foreigner. You took the braids from the urban cone. And when listening to me, I received not only in the vegetables of your soup, but also in the vibration of your mouth. I remember that time at the university. I remember you in the street. I remember in the waiting room of a hospital. I remember the speaking lips that looked at me, a condor without feathers. I was near my waist, and you erupted and you said, "You're Bolivian." Oh, I thought you were from somewhere else. No, but are you sure? Oh, you're Peruvian. Sorry for the inconveniences. I felt that you were different. Near your nose, we could see your curvature. My body doesn't stop to sing. We can see the notes. You can seal. We can see a thunderstorm that breaks the shadow, receiving. There wasn't anything strange. I was quite near your left shoulder, and I could see your tongue. Don't leave me alone. Don't lose me. Even though that look annihilates me, I will scratch you again. Because this is in a recent way. Making a zigzag, I saw you. My eyes don't forget that line, that tongue that you have in the interior. Well, that heteropatriarchal tongue is a voracious machine that goes beyond the borders. They are my cactuses. I prefer to do it naked because besides blood, they are something else. The tongue has different shapes and it is agitated. You put your hand on my body, and I didn't want to be an object of tolerance or hospitality. We are also procreators. Apparently 1 million of children, black-skinned foreigners, they can be seen in your eyes. You told me that you would see me up to my waist. I look at you. So below those bangs and in that hat, I could place my tongue. I remember some academic category. And in that tongue, I could just see that victim woman, a woman that was victim of oppression. I swear to the Virgin that I could also die. That tongue that exotizes us is also racist. Yes, it is racist. I draw this satellite while you travel through my chest to go back to the starting point. I allow myself to touch you and I advance. We go out to the streets and then there is a blue siren. We turned through that alley and then you threw me into the bed. We are just dissected that way in the limited spaces in your notebook, and I am the small ball that is quite dangerous. Yes, this song does not only talk about tragedy, but they also menstruate, and they evidently are also inverted. There are inverted ones. My tongue kisses, and you should not be disturbed. I am receiving this feeling. Well, these were the two poems that I wanted to share with you.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Chana, también por esa oportunidad de concentrarnos de una manera que también nos permite romper un
Thank you for
poco
this opportunity to
esta
break
virtualidad que nos
with
condiciona
the
y nos ha
situation that
obligado
is conditioning
necesariamente a
us.
encontrarnos
We are forced to meet
eh,
through
si nos unimos
this
al sonido y a la
video
palabra,
conference.
estamos más cerca, de alguna
So
forma
if you unite
estamos más cerca,
the
rompemos otras
word
barreras.
and the presence, we can break
Muchas gracias.
borders. Thank you very much.
De mucha cercanía, de
Thank
hecho.
you very much.
Eh,
Thank you very much. There was a lot of power in that
Así que me encanta.
poem. I'm so
También
touched,
a los que nos están viendo y los que nos
and
están por seguir las
I
redes
hope
sociales de Argos, por
that you
cierto.
can also follow the
Recordarles
Argos
en Twitter
social
Argos O
media,
Inc., en Facebook
Argos Inc. in
arroba Argos
Facebook,
O, la página web que es
the web page,
www.argoso.org y en YouTube
and
Argos
YouTube,
Observatorio Internacional.
International
Eh,
Observatory,
bueno,
Argos.
a ver si de
Well,
alguna
thank you
manera
very much.
seguimos uniéndonos en redes
And let's
sociales
hope that through
al
this
escuchar
we
a nuestra
can
siguiente poeta, que es Carolina Dávila.
remain in touch. We have Carolina Davila.
Bienvenida.
Carolina,
Carolina es
welcome.
filósofa y abogada
Writer
feminista,
and feminist
colombiana
lawyer of
radicada en
Colombian
Estados
nationality,
Unidos,
resident in the United
magíster en
States,
Derechos Humanos,
magister in human rights and democratization, and magister in
ha
creative
publicado
writing.
tanto
She
poesía
has
como
published
literatura
books
liberal.
of poetry as the
Actualmente ejerce un
cathedrals.
doctorado de literatura en la
She's
Universidad
studying in
Ibero
New
Latino
York,
y Poesía de
um,
2030.
winner of the National Prize of
Bienvenida, Carolina.
Literature of the Department of
Estoy
Culture,
lista para
and she
escuchar.
studies a doctorate in literature in New York. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very moved with this initiative. This is urgent, and I've been thinking all these days when we've been talking and chatting how to organize this event. Well, I've it hunkers back to my migration process. Migration is the word gathering or translating all the planet's phenomena, transnational economies based on the resource extraction, the violence, transborder violence that expel us from the territories, what is going in the climate emergency, how this affects local territories, leading to this migration phenomenon at this scale. I'm so happy to be here thinking about these issues and how, with a group of women, we can discuss women migration, the feminization of migration, the precariousness of our lives, poverty affecting migration, and also leads to dynamics such as labor division in an international scale, at an international scale, reproducing the logics of race, class, gender. And also, I think of migration as a part of rebelliousness. I lived in El Paso. I witnessed the arrival of the caravan of migrants getting to the south of the United States, and a collective bet to protect us collectively, to create bonds among the migrants. The migrant caravans moved me enormously because there is a lot of power of collective bonds, of demand collectively territories. And also, the last comment before reading the poems is that migration also means, I've been thinking also about these poems from literature. What I want to say is the meaning for my identity, or the idea I had about migrants, how I see migrants in general, the racialized perspective of migrants, and the instability of affective bonds. In my case, as an academic migrant, I studied a magister degree, master degree. I have to move to other countries where people are constantly moving. So, what type of networks, processes, community processes we can organize locally and transnationally? We can create, and how we can help each other. And also, what I felt very deeply here is the constant anxiety of perfection. I feel that I cannot make mistakes. I cannot make mistakes. I cannot have anything wrong. I need to be perfect. I need to be right, because I feel that people could deport me. That's a permanent threat. The common place that where we are is not the place we belong to. And how to get to roots and understand that this phenomenon is the result of historical practices. What we have already mentioned, the colonial practice imposing through violence, the fact that you cannot stay or remain in a place. I have 4 poems. The first 2 are very close regarding identity and to think migration, and the last 2 has to do with mobility, change of place, and effects. I want to start with this one, Amphibia, without a title. I'm going to start. There is an inside and an outside. There is always an inside and an outside, an impenetrable edge in its flow. There is also porosity, a finger in living flesh points, the burning belly of the machine, shadows that elongate and commingle with the color of the dust saved from the curated drone surveillance. There is porosity in the fatigue of the agents, in his reddened eyes, and in the near perfect alteration of the document, also in dogs and metal detectors. As physicists who crumble matter in search of elementary particles, there are those who dig deeper and refuse to believe in hardness, whereas others say stop, they see small holes, transparency in the striated membrane. They remain in the texture, grope until they find the slimming and permeating skin. Breaking the loop. Cut your nails with your teeth and freezing, you say, and the gnashing continues. You retain the pain of the organic calcium flakes off on your fingers. The mouth is filled with acid saliva and very liquid. Better the inhospitable, you think. The blood has been the tribute. Better this swamp, your blood, your own blood, never again. You do not ask about sacrifice. Once the tradition broken, you turn your eyes. You move with different familiarity and create new kinships. You look at your fingers, resins like freshly sharpened pencils and slice of names. You those who no longer correspond Homo neanderthalensis or Homo sapiens. And also from risk variables, our house and its privileged view, the air coming down from the mountain, the cold, on the stains of the walls, rumbled words, the drum bum, the pain of the cat, the delivery, and the tenderness of the 5 kittens. Our house was us, lying in bed and communal kitchen, the dances populated by women, also the broken window, damaged elevator 3 of the 7 days of the week, and mold on the roof of the shower. It was motherhood, the cancer, the hits against the world banners, and the song of Violeta Parra. Then the silence, coffee served, our house. We leave it one by one, you, the cat, and me, with furniture stowed, the ball of hair we don't clean, beer bottles washed and sealed to avoid evil spirits, all breathing moisture, all that is ours protected from contact. And at the end, the body, the wall. One eye expresses its resistance and closes. In the clarity of silence, the click is confused with the tachycardia. The day is this outrage that passes through the body for the feral of food and fatigue. The body, containment barrier, receives the onslaught of the word, of the millimeter negotiations, so that nothing changes to stay on the limit. Reality with its staring and laceration. Thank you so much, Carolina. So to save the contact.
Impacto.
Thank you, Carolina. Is the volume okay? I migrated 5 years ago. I lived 3 years in El Paso, Texas, and now I've been living for 2 years in New York. This means that the time that we stay in other countries is prolonged. Yes, and it also has to do precisely with that precarization of the places where we come from. Because my initial plan was to migrate for 3 years. I worked in Colombia in human rights topics, mainly in the area of the peace process. And my idea actually was to return to my country after the master's degree and to work in something that could somehow connect what I had learned with the construction of the country. But you know what happened with that process. So you can see how things change in life vis-a-vis those local realities. Yes, we become locals and we come into remigration systems. We migrate from one place to another, and that is what we do. Through the Facebook, I remind you that the website is at Argos.org. I would like to make some comments. So there are people commenting from the Havana, from Colombia, from Havana, Azalia Arias, from Medellin, Santiago Sorias, from Italy, Aurora de Agostino, Elizabeth Otoris Casas, Mary Gonzalez from the Guayú territory. Thank you very much to all our friends. Next, we are going to listen to Fatma Gamia Mosalek, Samik Salem Bahamad. Thank you, Fatma. Thank you for waiting. She's in the Basque country, and we feel the time hour, the song time, quite a lot. Good evening. Fatma is a journalist, she's a poet, she's an activist for the human rights of the Sahrawi people. She studied journalism at the Faculty of Lioya at the university. Apart from books that are Laena and the peoples of the Sahrawi, the choral culture of the Nobots on the Sahrawi culture. So Fatma, we give you the floor. Good evening to everyone and good afternoon from the other side of the earth. Thank you to all of you. And thank you to the Observatory for inviting me, for inviting the Sahrawi women. Since I am a poet and an activist, all the things that I've been doing recently come from the people, and I want to give it back as a legacy to my people. And this not only relies on the fact that I am a poet, we are united also by the fact that we are liberated women, that we must raise our voices and give the voices to those women who don't have a voice. And I have been migrating since I was born. When I was 4 years old, my entire family have moved to other houses. And after 45 years, we are still living in exile in Kindu, Algeria. And despite all the things that I have lived, I have always found in poetry one way to vent out. I have not had an easy childhood due to the war, and at 10 years of age, I had to study quite far from my family, thousands of kilometers away, in the solitary Republic of Cuba. Then I came to the Basque Country. I have been living for 29 years here. I have been living for this problem for a long time. I've lived in a continent that has been quite punished due to colonialism, the exploitation of man, hunger, natural catastrophes. So there are so many problems, so many things that have turned me into a journalist, but a literary journalist. I am doing a poetic journalism. I do not work for any mass media TV channel as a journalist. But in order not to get away from my profession, what I do is that I write poetry as a human rights activist. So I try to illustrate the migrating movements because our exile has been forced, has been obligatory. We're forced to migrate. And the migrating movements have been quite remote, where in the Western world, they have not asked us for permission. They have exploited our natural resources. And when we simply went there with a peaceful attitude, and I here include women, men, and children in search of a better life and a better work, we saw conflicts and many problems. We confronted many conflicts and we were not well welcome. So all those problems, I illustrated them in a book of poems, in the last book that I published, that is called The Dignity of a Golden Crown. In this book, I talk about a dignified life, because we must have a dignified life. First of all, we are human beings who live in one same planet, where maybe the word immigrant is not well considered, because in Africa, people flee from hunger, from misery. And in many countries, even though they are independent, they still live extreme poverty. And we, the Sahrawi, belong to a refugee field, the oldest refugee field in the world. We are still a Spaniard colony, and that is why, even though we are an Arabic colony, we speak Spanish. So all the things that I saw, and this is why I sent you this poem that is called The Immigrant, which to me, the word immigrant has become a term that I'd rather call travelers instead of immigrants. because immigrant is a despective, a pejorative term. So this is how I see the immigrant as a traveler. The immigrant always daydreams of a happy and tolerant world. The immigrant risks his life in search of a life on a boat and loses it before stepping on the border. The immigrant who arrives to cross the border doesn't know where he is clinging to. The immigrant always daydreams of a happy and tolerant world. The immigrant says goodbye to death in the Western world and receives it in the Eastern world. And I don't know who is luckier. The immigrant who dies suddenly, or the immigrant who lives dying slowly. This poem, which I have titled My Childhood, my childhood. My childhood tasted as honey. It smelled incenses and it was a precious innocence. My childhood went very quickly from laughters, and it turned into a dark skin under the sun of Sahara, playing in the sand under a tree, on top of a purple smooth stone. A childhood that was simple, with simple games and with simple dolls made by the tender hands of my grandmother who has been my best school. Girl, listen, girl, don't do this, don't do that, don't run so fast. Throughout life, there are spies and broken crystals that you step on without realizing it, and that prevents you to reach your destiny. Girl, even though you fall, don't stop. Walk straight ahead without looking back, because what's difficult is not to reach the summit, but to remain on the summit.
Mi poesía es una poesía clara.
My poetry is a clear poetry. It's transparent, without metaphors, because through music, through images, and through the words, I try to convey a message that will reach people, because we are nothing more than travelers who move around a world where we want to live. We want to live in a planet without borders, without passports. We have not chosen the place where we are born, but we do freely want to choose the place where we live. And I chose the vast country. You have chosen Venezuela, Mexico, the United States, but with the entire freedom, travelers. How many travelers left their houses driven by their need to look for a piece of bread in another city? How many travelers came back due to the cruelty and the fear to social rejection? They never assumed the other side of the cruel reality. How many travelers, fanatic travelers, moved by despair, travelers without safety, amidst so much problems, were not able to reach their destination. Their souls rest in the eternity of what's beyond. How many travelers had a worse solution, a worse remedy than the disease. They were sent to strange countries. They cried. Their hearts were hurt and consumed by loneliness, longing the warmth of their homeland. They never felt peace or tranquility. How many travelers, because of staying here abroad, had to pay a high price to be able to earn the appreciation of society? They were unjustly deprived from their dignity. How many children were born in faraway lands, lost amidst a huge immensity? They're not from here, they're not from there. From a very early age, they were deprived of their own identity. To take away the identity of children who are born in foreign lands, make the roots disappear. And there is a poem that I dedicate to my children, to my daughters, when they ask me, Mom, where am I from? Nobody will take my roots away. I am a worthy and adventurous old woman. Even if I go far away, no one will take away my roots. No one will change the color of my eyes. No one will silence my voice. When I travel abroad, I am considered a foreigner. And when I decide to return to my roots, the one I love the most, even if I don't love it, I will be considered a stranger and an adventurer. All navigate lost in the seas of ignorance without knowing who I am, where I come from, and where I go to. All because of the customs. And that's because customs are not born, but they are made by men. And we are not from where we are born, but where we go. No one will take my roots away. I know who I am, where I come from, and where I am going to. I am part of this immense universe where no one is left over, where no one is left behind. I'm from the land, from the sea, from the fire, from the water, from the cold, from the air, from the sun, and from the moon, from the mud, from the blood, and from the sweat. And although I am dark-skinned, no one will change the color of my skin. I am human and I am not a chameleon. Even if I learn another language, no one will silence my mother tongue. Even if I learn other customs, no one will erase my identity. Even if I dress differently, no one will humiliate my dignity. Everyone sail lost in the seas of ignorance, not knowing who I am, where I come from, or where I am going. They judge me by the place where I was born, by the color of my skin, or by a language that I learned. But nobody will take my roots away. I know who I am, I know where I come from, and I know where I'm going to. In order to end, I have a poem that I wrote when I got here. When I got here with empty suitcases. I had to overcome the language barriers, the loss of identity, the solitude, the nostalgia makes you cling to it. And for more than 20 years, I've been part of an organization that is called Movement of the World. It is an organization that helped me a lot, along with other women that are from Latin America, from Asia. And we all meet and gather, and we have formed a huge family. I would like to convey a hug to my association.
And also, I would like to embrace all women that deserve our hug. And from here, my virtual hug. With this poem, The Hugs of the World.
Abrazos de
hugs of the world.
¿Quién no haya dejado algo atrás?
You have always left something behind. You have always dreamed of hugging someone. As each Monday, I don't know who's going to sit by my side. I receive only a sea of hugs where my dreams want to navigate, and kisses where my soul wants to feed from. A different embrace from in person hug that alleviate my loneliness. A sweet hug, hugs, 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 wished from here and there, from yesterday and today. Those that you never forget. Hugs that was born in Paraguay and was raised in Argentina. Wonderful hug from Buenos Aires. Hug from the core of the land, of the earth. Pure hug. Hugs flowing as the Amazon of your heart. Hugs from Peru, from Venezuela that captivate and soothe you. Hugs from Colombia, from a bird that left in the morning and cannot return in the evening. It's a sweet hug to heal the wounds, natural hug like the mariachis from Mexico, beautiful nation. We have always dreamed of being hugged and to hug. Hugs, hugs, as every Monday I receive a sea of hugs where my spirit want to navigate, kisses that I want to give on the cheeks we have been in the past tears. Hugs, deep hugs with the large smile, reaching to the highest and to the deepest place to soothe the hearts. A true hug of those of yesterday, of the woman of Santander from the Basque Country, generous hugs and smiles from Managua, showing that life can be lived once. Hugs and kisses that make you happy. Hugs, hugs. Who has not dreamed of being hugged and hugged? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I hope you have enjoyed these poems. I'm going to uh, remain with the kid that just kneel down but stay strong. And also, I'm glad to keep this message of hugs and the importance of hugging. And there we have the next poet, a Venezuelan immigrant in Chile. We have lost also most of our bonds. So Vanessa, as I said, is a Venezuelan immigrant in Chile, feminist, migrant, and social environmental activist. He works in Chile, member of the national coordinator of immigrants of Chile. So you have the floor. Thank you very much for your kind invitation to open this important space, opening more windows of visibilization of migration in the world. And thank you for allowing me to share with the beautiful, potent poet. And this responsibility of closing makes me a little bit nervous. However, preserve the words uttered so far. To begin, before telling my poems, I want to make a few reflections resulting from various organizations, from migrant women and refugees in Chile. Those are vast spaces. There are many of us. We have a common history, both in Latin America, but also in the whole hemisphere. The diaspora that have been here for years, the first waves of colonizers. Our migrations are marked by years, uh, souvenirs, this treasure, enabling us to believe in a future that sometimes is uncertain in each migration. And we vindicate this in Chile. There is a political action, a vindication to make visible the idea that no person is illegal, to recognize and respect migrants and the need of justice for all of us, and to have an impact on the policies of governments that receive us as migrants. The experience of migration is part of our bodies and lead us to rethink our place in the world, which is not clearly identified always. Despite this, we are building a strength that is indestructible in the impetus to defend the right to belong to different territories and defend territories to where we arrive that become our homes and protect us against our vulnerabilities. So, in agreement with the previous speakers, the roots that we carry with us continue to grow. The building of space, creating networks which, which we identify and sustain us. Our horizon will always be the same. Migrate should be to flourish and not disappear, as migrant women say here in Chile in our daily existence. After these brief words, I will then share a few poems as part of these experiences. The heart I carry has the form of a house. You forget you have a house, that the house can be anywhere, that anywhere, not necessary, there is a place for our souls, and that our desire can be lost very quickly from us. Nobody wants to get hurt when you want to look for a good life. If we have to move away, we don't have to get hurt. We want to love, we don't want to get hurt. Even if the long, wet hours of nostalgia are long, where time is not going to rescue us from what we did, not the old solitude of the desert roads. We prayed that the final stop is not a border without border lines. We come to avoid necessity because we are tired and scared. The house that moves with us is the heart that finally takes its form. We carry a memory of old slums and bare feet, buckets of cold water over our heads, and a relentless release from hope. Displaced. Today, there is in the world 15 million impossible capsizes for people displaced in cracks. A child waits for the night, almost sleepwalking, fragmented, imprecise, and leaves without fighting the same fleeting, recurring grace. The insistent gesture he makes of rifles, enough we are, despite the panorama shown. Now I confuse myself with them, countless numbers of people, we are strangers and close, a reason for hope that urges us to follow, find a place to hide the tear and the flagging limbs. And last, escape the fading city. Escape. Under this vulnerable surface, there is nothing more to look for but gestures, signs of life, among sleep remnants of death and by day. Everything becomes now come and go, the city that fades, of the spirited glances, choking that go through one after another. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. Thank you to all the colleagues, poets, the poets that accompanied us. It's been a wonderful and moving experience and very enriching one. It's so good that we can share. And as I said before, this hopefully we will break these digital barriers. I would like to invite Nicole again to join us. What did you think about this recital, Nicole? It was magnificent, very moving. I speechless. There's so many things, beautiful poems. Thank you so much for accompanying us with your reflections, your potent poems to launch this observatory that we hope could become a place of encounter and the struggle. We can share the information to move forward with the timely actions to contribute to the construction of a just world without walls and borders. Thank you very much. Thank you, you all. Thank you. There are other greetings. Marianne, Irat, greetings from Belgium. People sending the messages from Tehran, Iran. Olivia Smith from the from Barbados. Also greetings from the fight this time for social justice in Canada. Congratulations who have taken part in this important initiative. We hope that this Argos Observatory will be useful and we can together build an international movement to defend human rights and the rights of migrants. Thank you very much. Thank you for your kind messages. To close, we want to show two videos of very cherished people. Thank you so much for sharing us. Mosqueda, Vijay Prashad of the Tricontinental Institute.
Soy Ana Mosquera. En nombre de la agrupación Sosebelo, quiero dar la bienvenida al mundo social a Argos, Observatorio de Migración y Derechos Humanos. Somos una agrupación gallega y los gallegos cuando hablamos de migración sabemos de qué hablamos. Somos descendientes de varias generaciones de migrantes que recorrieron Argentina, Brasil, Buenos Aires, México, Venezuela. Emigrantes que nos mandaron remesas de dinero con los que se construyeron escuelas, emigrantes que dejaron allá su corazón. Conocemos a través de nuestras familias historias desgraciadas de emigrantes que sufrieron en los barcos, que fueron estafados. Nuestra poeta nacional, Rosalía de Castro, dedicó a esos emigrantes sus mejores poemas. Por eso, porque está en el ADN de nuestro pueblo, no podemos sino recibir con un enorme abrazo y con entusiasmo a este proyecto. Un fuerte saludo.
My name is Vijay Prashad, Director of Tricontinental Institute for Social Research. What kind of world do we live in where capital has the right to travel across borders and be treated with respect, while the working class migrant who tries to cross borders is treated as a criminal? What kind of system gives money rights but treats working class humans as criminals? Money, which is produced by humans, is treated like a god, while humans who are supposed to be created in the image of God are treated as things. This has got to change. We welcome Argos, the many-eyed observatory, to inform us of the 281 million violations of human rights experienced by the planet's 281 million migrants. Keep watch on our planet, Argos. Help make human beings decent.
Bueno, con esto nos despedimos.
Well, we say goodbye. Thank you so much for attending this activity. We will be following closely your messages. Thank you, Violeta, Carolina, Chana, Vanessa, for your kind words, your inspiring words. And Nicole, thank you for this extraordinary initiative of Argos, an urgent space and necessary in these times. Thank you, Taroa, for moderating this activity. Thank you to the poet and all the team that organized this event and those who followed us from the distance. You can visit our webpage and the social networks of Argos, this International Observatory for Migration and Human Rights. A big hug to all of you. Thank you very much. Big hug to all of you. Thank you very much.